Ray Ramos on your right, Revolt Zoo. Yeah, he doesn't have a draw.
No.
And versus Sheen on Bant Eldrazi. And Bant he'll start out on Noble Hierarch. Looks like he could have a very explosive start of his own, though. 2 copies of Eldrazi Temple with that turn 1 Noble Hierarch. Got to watch out for things like turn 2 Thought Knot Seers.
Yep, and that outsizes everything in the Revolt Zoo deck. Going wide is nice, but it can be difficult to chip in for those last points of damage if your opponent is able to get on the board quickly with large blockers.
Yeah, now Revolt Zoo, if you want to go that turn 4 rule in Modern, Revolt Zoo breaks that one a lot. You see the Narnum Renegade turn 1. This deck has a lot of turn 3 kills.
Renegade's actually one of the better cards in the Revolt Zoo deck in this matchup because it can always attack into anything and at least trade.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the cards here we've seen out of Aether Revolt. Outside of Fatal Push, this might be the best Modern card in the set. A 2/3 Death Touch on turn 1 is way above the curve.
Yes. Speaking of above the curve, the best cantrip in Modern for our Bant Eldrazi player.
Yeah, Kaider Sheen, Ancient Stirrings finds. Smartly here, it's going to find Engineered Explosives. Now, is he looking to set this on 1 or 2 then in the matchup?
Should have access to 4 mana on the following turn, so he can take this turn to figure it out. Frequently it will be 2, but there's also enough games where it's 1.
Plays Eldrazi Temple and says go.
Now, given that he can't play it and activate it on this turn, it just makes a lot of sense to wait to see what Ray does here.
Yeah, I mean, if his land wasn't an Eldrazi Temple, he might have placed it on 2 just to be mana efficient. But getting those temples in play, especially when he has a second temple, so he does have one in hand, that means, we could see Drowner next turn.
Yeah.
Because lands that tap for 2 are just that reasonable.
Yeah, those cards are good.
All right, looking forward to this turn 2 here from Revolt Zoo. Just how much damage is he going to push? Got to be careful because they knows there's an Engineered Explosives. So, dumping a bunch of 2-drops like Green Belt, Emissary, Bushwhacker. And maybe doesn't care. Burning Tree Emissary. Into Reckless Bushwhacker. I guess he's got a 1, a 2, and a 3 in play.
Yeah, nice
so,
diversity at casting cost.
Swing them all. So a 2/1, a 3/2, and a 3/3. That is 8 damage.
Not anticipating a block here. Possibly a removal spell.
Path to Exile on the Narnum Renegade. They'll make that just a modest 5 damage, though it does give Ray another land.
And the Renegade, that was the most valuable creature there. It is the one with Death Touch, also one of the 2 creatures attacking for 3.
Back over to Kaider. We'll see what his follow-up here. Mentioned he has another temple, so this could be big. He only went to 15 on that attack. I would think something like a Drowner of Hope would be more than enough to get the game.
Yeah, Drowner would be mighty nice here. The Eldrazi Scions get in front of Reckless Bushwhacker and just trade. The 5/5 is very hard to deal with.
So here's another temple. We know he has Engineered Explosives in hand. A Reality Smasher pushed up to the front. Though if he tries to race with Smasher, that could end very poorly for him. Revolt Zoo can produce a lot of damage out of nowhere.
Since Ray has already spent a Burning Tree Emissary and a Reckless Bushwhacker, there's only 4 Bushwhackers in the deck, though you do have to be mindful of a Tarkus command. That one can push a lot of damage as well.
So no Drowner, but is Reality Smasher. Now Kaider has to decide attack or block. The remaining cards in his hand are Cavern of Souls, Windswept Heath, and Engineered Explosives. So while he has a ton of mana acceleration, this is his only payoff card.
It makes a bit of sense to wait and set up Engineered Explosives on 2, but if you don't think that Ray has it, getting aggressive faster will win the game. He doesn't have anything else going on besides that Explosives.
Yeah, he hits Ray down to 10. Exalts up to a 6/6. And I mean, that part makes sense, right? There's not at a 3-drop and a 2-drop in play for Ray that I don't know if I want to count on Engineered Explosives to be that good.
Yeah.
Now Ray will reload. Last turn he had a swing for 5. Still has plenty of cards in hand.
It's also the fact that Ray just knows about the Explosives. It makes it a lot harder to capitalize.
Swings for 4, casts Greenbelt Rampager, no Revolt.
Hidden Herbalist.
Oh, Hidden Herbalist. Thank you. and fetch land. So he could have revolted at that turn, but decides not to. Nothing really to do with the mana. Another land, Cavern of Souls to pick up for Kaider. This is a problem.
Yes.
So all lands. Now the Smasher's swinging for 6 a turn, so he doesn't need much time. Just 1 turn could be enough.
He does have the 2-for-1 with the explosives now. Given that Ray played into it and knows about it, that has to give you some pause. But when there's nothing going on in your hand, the action can just be forced.
Kaider will fetch down to 10. Now Ray has a Lightning Bolt in his hand as one of his remaining cards. Though because of that Exalt, I was going to say he could block and bolt, except that Exalted trigger from Noble Hierarch pushes Rally Smasher just a little too far out of range.
Reasonable chance that Kaider is just going to go for main phase explosives and pop it. Nice thing about that, as far as he knows, it leaves back Noble Hierarch as a blocker, which potentially gains him something like 3, maybe even 4 life.
So he will do main phase Engineer Explosives. We'll see if he cracks it right now. I guess he doesn't have to, right? If he's worried about a bunch of haste, like burning tree, haste sort of things, he'll go ahead and get rid of it now. Emissary and Herbalist both gone. Swings for 6, puts Ramos down to 4.
Yeah, Ray just doesn't have that many cards in hand. It's hard to have 2 explosive of a turn, and Kaider has a blocker.
2 drawing up to 3, and Ray does not have it. So game 1 goes to Kaider Sheen on Bant Eldrazi.
And Bant Eldrazi just has a lot of the stuff that makes it hard for the Revolt Zoo deck to actually close, particularly when it's on the draw.
Well, yeah, and what we saw there from Kaider is that his deck's very good at ramping. I mean, he had a turn 3 Reality Smasher with Exalted. That's just good.
Yeah, no kidding.
So looking at the sideboards, going for Bant Eldrazi. They oftentimes have a lot of tools to get around someone trying to go wide. It's one of their weaknesses. We see the hate cards, none of them really work here. Grafdigger's Cage, Stony Silence, Rest in Peace. But then I start to look at cards, Blessed Alliance, Disdainful Stroke, Thragtusk, Negate, Naturalize, Worship, have to like that one, and Ajani Unyielding.
Yeah, Blessed Alliance is a little on the inefficient side for the matchup, but the card is still totally serviceable. Thragtusk, if you can get there, that makes sense. You might want to trim some stuff a little higher up on your curve to make room for that one. There's a couple Relic of Progenitus in the main deck, so Kaider can certainly board those ones out. And Worship's going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, now, do you like anything like Thragtusk out of the Bant Eldrazi deck, or is it just a little too big?
It's totally fine. It's really a comparison between the cards in the main deck. It's hard to get there, but again, if you have that Relic of Progenitus, you're certainly boarding that one out.
Yeah, that part's easy. Now, over on the side of Revolt Zoo, he's got mostly his game 1 deck. I suppose the Lightning Bolts were not great that game. Path to Exile, Destructive Revelry, Thalia, the 2-mana Thalia, Rest in Peace, Grafdigger's Cage, Deflecting Palm perhaps, Declaration in Stone, anything you like here?
The Path to Exiles make a lot of sense. I really like Ray's configuration, the fact that he only has 2 Path to Exile. It's so rare that boarding in more than 2 is correct. So this is just a good configuration. Stops himself from bringing in 3 even if he wanted them. So he can just get the blockers out of the way, which is a significant problem for his deck. Deflecting Palm is fine. Sometimes you can hit a 5-power creature, say a Reality Smasher, and that can turn the game on its side. It's not the best plan in a matchup like this. If you're able to get in early, you can clean up a game with Deflecting Palm, but if you're getting in early, it likely means your opponent's not doing a great job of interacting with you anyway. It could feel like a mulligan in a lot of spots.
Yeah. Now, I do really like Declaration in Stone here as well. Just if it figures if Path to Exile is good, then Declaration in Stone's probably okay.
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things especially with a deck like Revolt Zoo, you really have to be careful about how many cards you sideboard out.
Right.
It's such a synergy-based deck. Coming out here, and I do actually want to look at that. We're looking Lightning Bolt, or is there a creature that's a loser that you generally go away from?
Hitting Noble Hierarch can matter a good amount in this matchup. Frequently, the card you see people throwing shade at in the deck is Curd Ape. It's pretty much the worst creature in the deck.
Bad Narnum Renegade.
Yep.
All right, we're going to see a second game. This time, Revolt Zoo is going to be on the play, so expect some fireworks. Over at Star City Games, we talked earlier about Game Night. Now, some of our favorite Game Night creatures have migrated, as animals will do, over to playmats and sleeves. Those are available in the store now, starsgames.com/creature collection. Though pig's not normally known as a migratory animal, you can pick it up now. Oh, well, we can get back to the match too. I know there's a lot of complexity going on in that one.
my knowledge of species that are or not migratory kind of starts and stops with birds, which I feel stick around way longer than they should.
I always think that birds was that they come, that despite sometimes their lifespans, like the same bird never does the same trip, but yet the same flock of birds can migrate. I always think that's really neat.
My interest in birds is clearly eclipsed by yours.
Well, no, it's just kind of right. It's like the bird can't remember its way back home because it's never done it.
Sure.
So it's because he just has to speak in bird. He leaves directions with the other birds.
I have a similar problem.
That you never. That doesn't. I don't know if that's what that means. Ray will be on the play here. Game for our second game. Now, for Ray Ramos, a win here could likely mean top 8. Now, because Kaider has a draw, he's going to have to win both his remaining matches to get into the top 8. But that starts here. Both players keeping on 7. And it's going to be Wild Nicatl from Ramos.
Card once banned in the modern format.
That's kind of wild, isn't it?
Ha ha ha. I see what you did.
It's interesting when you go back to the history of the ban list. We were noticing that yesterday. We had a blue-black fairies deck, if you go back to our coverage, saying, boy, that deck sure is a collection of cards that used to be banned. And then we unbanned them and nothing happened.
And the deck is still a shade shy of playable.
Yeah, Ancestral Visions into Bitter Blossom. Maybe that wasn't as good as we thought it was.
Right. It just, as card pools expand and as design philosophies change, the relative power level of cards also shift.
Sure, and yeah, so that doesn't necessarily mean at the time maybe it was worth banning.
Bitter Blossom was way too good for standard, certainly too good for block constructed. Things change as we expand it into extended and into modern.
So some more 2-drops from Ray as he sings with Nicatl. It's going to be Narnum Renegade and Curd Ape. So just getting the most efficient cards onto the board here.
Mm-hmm. And while this is 3 1-mana creatures, Engineered Explosives a little slow against a draw like this, even if Kaider has it.
Yeah, the only way he can crack it on turn 2 is if he plays it on turn 1, which means Ray wouldn't do this.
Exactly.
So Kaider is helped out by Eldrazi Temple, a turn 2 Sky Spawner. So some size of his own.
Unfortunately, it takes both the Sky Spawner and the Scion to trade with any of these 3 creatures.
Yeah. Another draw from Ray looks like Goblin Guide. Well, that's something that does 1-for-1 trade.
If Ray had an Atarka's Command, this combat stab would be real ugly.
Goblin Guide into Atarka's Command is just
yeah.
This deck's really fast.
Ray does have to be a little bit concerned about committing another 1-mana creature now because Kaider could Explosives and pop it on the following turn.
Right. We'll switch that Eldrazi Spawn out for an Eldrazi Scion. Hold on. This one's
Those are different cards.
Sure, Kaider would prefer the 1-1 to the 0-1.
It's an upgrade. You can't accidentally make the wrong token. It's not something that the game allows.
No, he missed it. He missed it.
You missed the power on your token.
That means you got to get this 0-1. Here's Goblin Guide, the 4th 1-drop from Ray. Yeah, he's gonna. This last card in his hand is Atarka's Command. Oh boy. Swing, trigger, another Sky Spawner. That stays on top. Yeah, that's definitely an Atarka's Command. So Sky Spawner's going to try to block Goblin Guide. Thinking about it. So if Ray has the Atarka's Command, I feel like Kaider is on Engineered Explosives or lose.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
This is a lot of damage here.
And he's not top decking it. He's drawing Sky Spawner next turn. So he's going to, looks like he's going to chump block the Wild Nicatl and block with Sky Spawner. Here is Atarka's Command. Pump the team and deal 3. So Goblin Guide's going to live. Kaider goes down to a 14 on the burn spell and then takes 6 more on the attack. Goes to 8. Loses both his creatures. He better sweep the board right now. And he can't, because of Eldrazi Temple, he can't even Stirrings into it. Now maybe using that Sky Spawner he drew, he can chump block his way to another turn.
Yeah, he can.
It's not good.
Block away 5 power worth of attackers.
Fetch down to 7.
Yeah, after the next turn, he's going to be in a position where a lot of top decks from Ray actually just end the game. Lightning Bolt to Atarka's Command. And there's nothing that Kaider could have done about this.
No, Ray chose the most aggressive of lines, which takes away a lot of Kaider's decisions. There's a chance that last turn Ray's play would have just been no plays swing, right? That's pretty reasonable. Kaider would have to double block. And if Ray makes that play, then there's a lot more interaction going on. But when Ray just puts pedal to the metal, going to play everything, play around nothing, then Kaider's decisions kind of go away. Either he has the thing that Ray didn't play around, engineered explosives, or he doesn't.
Right.
Ancient Stirrings and Eldrazi Sky Spawner, the play for Kaider. Stirrings hit Thought Knot Seer. That's going to be a little slow for this game.
When your opponent has already cast all of their spells and you need more than one blocker, that is not the best spot.
Oh, and more pressure being added by Ray. All right, it's Curd Ape and Path to Exile. This thing's not actually lethal.
Yeah, it looks to be a little bit shy.
It's 1 point
Scion
short.
blocks Nakatl, and then Kaider just takes 6.
Okay. So Kaider's going to go down to 1.
So you might be thinking, Ray just committed another 1-mana creature
Yeah,
into
why
engineered
play
explosives.
Curd Ape?
The thing is, Kaider has access to that and Thought Knot Seer, either taking the card out of the hand or just making a 4/4 versus a 2/3. That Curd Ape's going to get outclassed at some point here.
All right, Goblin Guide trigger here.
Meanwhile, casting the Curd Ape allows him to overpower something like a Drowner of Hope a little more effectively.
So the trigger was missed. Judge is going to rule on whether or not Kaider gets to, and on just how to resolve the missed trigger.
Pretty sure the trigger goes on the stack. It might be an issue of whether or not somebody needs a warning.
It's because the trigger is on, if the trigger is on Kaider's card, it would definitely be missed. Because it's on Ray's card, it's a little...
And not announcing your Goblin Guide and Eidolon or the Great Revel triggers, that stuff can get you in trouble.
So Ray missed the trigger, and then Kaider's given the option, well, would you like to have the trigger happen or not? Kaider says yes, draws a Cavern of Souls, but goes to 1. And can he survive? 7 cards in hand. They need to be good ones. Ancient Stirrings. I guess if he hits Engineer Explosives, we have a game.
Yeah, that would clean this up.
And Stirrings is the card to find it. Can he do it? He does.
Okay.
Engineer Explosives. He needs an untapped land.
Why?
To sacrifice it.
Why?
Oh, it only costs 1. Never mind. He doesn't need anything. Here's Engineered Explosives on 1. So yeah, committing that last Curd Ape.
It ends up being a non-issue because in the following turn, Thought Knot Seer is going to unclass it one way or the other. He can have it.
Okay.
Something like double Sky Spawner can block 4 creatures. Wouldn't block that plus Curd Ape.
A swing here. All the creatures are dead to the explosives. Talisman on top of the deck, and now Ray plays the lethal Narnum Renegade.
Yeah, lethal and trades with anything.
Yeah, not a bad card to have here. But for Kaider, something as simple as a smash or like a Drowner would work here. I also think last turn Kaider, he missed a land?
I thought he played a fetch land and went to 1. Or no, that was
the turn
he
before.
went to 1 previously. Yeah, he might have not made his land drop.
And it's going to be Drowner from Kaider, so that's very strong here. Ray needs to top deck burn now. He's got Atarka's Commands and perhaps Lightning Bolts, so he's not impossible.
Yeah, there's some creatures with haste, but the Bant Eldrazi deck very quickly closes the window for those.
Yeah, and this kind of shows your Curd Ape thing. So say Ray hadn't committed the last Curd Ape. Now if he had Curd Ape plus Renegade, that's not really any different.
Right. You force Kaider to give up a little bit more material.
Burning Tree Emissary and pass.
Yeah, for Ray, I like attacking with the Renegade, at least trading with the Drowner.
With the Drowner. Or with a Scion. Because as soon as Kaider finds Displacer for this Drowner, then your creatures are never working again.
Right. Unlikely to make a huge difference. We're probably just looking at top deck Burn Spell or Bust.
Yeah, I mean, now, the Displacer is there.
Yeah.
So you're right. So he'd be -1 Scion. That's not where this game's going to be won and lost.
Right.
So with Displacer plus Drowner, not only is Ray never going to be able to attack, this is going to win the game rather quickly.
Yes.
Noble Hierarch added. Kaider looking to have stabilized at 1. Now he's got to still remember that Burn could be on top of the deck.
So I see him contemplating using a Scion proactively to start connecting with this Drowner.
I like the thought. The idea that he needs to turn the corner quickly is exactly where his head should be. Though I don't know if he has it this turn. He's going to use the Displacer to blink the Renegade. It comes back into play tapped, but with a 1/1 counter on it.
Yeah, it triggers Revolt for itself.
Yeah. And swings with Drowner.
So Kaider did give up a little bit of value here. He could have ended up with +1 Scion over this situation. But I like the attack.
Use a Scion to tap it, then blink the Drowner.
Right.
Ray down to 10. Ray goes to attack, so we're going to tap down the Narnum Renegade. And we'll see if he taps the Emissary. May not be necessary. He's actually that -1 Scion might cost him a turn if you look at the life totals here.
Sure.
You know, he has 9 damage in play. A little short. Here goes Burning Tree Emissary getting tapped.
So Kaider's already dead to a burn spell.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have lost a Path to Exile. That second tap didn't look necessary either.
Path to Exile picked up from Kaider. Breeding Pool. He will still have a lethal. It's just 1 turn later than it needed to be.
Right.
So if this next card, if Ray top decks him out this turn, then that's going to be a missed opportunity. But I think barring that, Kaider is still in excellent position.
Right. Yeah, it's up to a 7-outer for Ray. That's the maximum possible here.
And something like Bushwhacker, not going to be good enough?
I suppose if he boarded in Deflecting Palm, that increases the number of his outs.
That would do it.
Might be playing for a tie with that one at this point.
Drowner swings for 5. Kaider setting up for a kill next turn. Path, Talisman in hand. I thought not Seer. I mean, his best play might just be to blink this Drowner a couple times and leave. If he could blink the Drowner twice, leave up Path, that seems like the safest thing he can do here.
Yeah, frequently blinking Drowner is
better than the cards in your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to play Noble Hierarch. That's fine.
He still has 2 activations worth of mana.
Yeah,
here.
I mean, it's probably worse than blinking Drowner.
Well, it doesn't cost him a blink, though.
It costs him the Path.
Sure.
This doesn't matter. If Ray doesn't draw the burn spell,
it's got to be burn
all of
here.
these win.
And if it was burn,
the Ray would be, you'd be putting that on the table.
Yeah. It still might be Deflecting Palm, which makes for a weird thing. The game could have some different resolutions if that was the top deck.
Ray goes to attack. Kaider blinks the Drowner. Makes 2 Scions. Let's tap out some things. Tap Renegade. Tap another guy. Burning Tree. Yeah, you go ahead and attack.
Trigger Burning Tree Emissary.
Oh, wow. 2 mana. Do it again. 2 more Scions.
I suppose tapping it, not blinking
that was
it.
end step. Race has no attacks. End step. Kaider blinks it, untaps, draws, and that's going to do it. Kaider Sheen, Bant Eldrazi. He defeats Ray Ramos. Goes to 11-2-1. Halfway to the top 8. Kaider's going to need a win in the last round.